What is going on, everybody, man? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Code podcast. I'm super excited today. We have a very very special human being on with us today. Somebody that has had a tremendous impact on my life. I know we've only been connected for a short period of time. However, just the transformation and the opportunity to work with Matt has been life-changing. And I know how it's impacting me and is allowing me to impact others. And I'm just super excited to have Matt on with us today. Matt, how are you?
Good, John. Thanks for having me. By the way, it's impacting me too. So it's mutual. It's good.
Mutual. Yeah, I think you find entertainment in our conversations.
Yeah, no, not entertainment. Just depth and coolness. It's awesome.
Depth and coolness.
Yeah.
I would love for you to kind of unpack your story a little bit. I know on the post and we'll put it in the show notes and everything, your bio and connections to you. But I would love for you to just kind of unpack your story. And I'll was introduced to you through somebody that is mutual friend.
Yeah.
And through conversation, he didn't even kind of recommend. He was just sharing his story and how the impact that you had on his life and on his kids' lives. And I was like, I've got to connect with this guy, and dove into as much content as I could. Found your TED Talk and got a copy of the book. And so love for you to just kind of unpack it a little bit.
Well, it's funny, John, like, you never know how you get where you get. My life is it all weirdly started. My parents divorced when I was 8, right? So as an 8-year-old, I'd listen to my parents argue in the back bedroom of our little 1,800 square foot house, and I thought, why can't they get along? Like, these are good people, and I love them, and I love both of them, so they could figure out a way to love each other. So back at a very young age, I learned that communication is not easy. And then they divorced. And so literally from about 10 to 12 years of age on, I was always watching relationships. I was just always watching my friends' parents. I was kind of that creepy kid that just stares a lot and watches. And I was just trying to figure out, what is the deal? Why couldn't my parents do it? And, it creates weird issues because then you're different than all of your friends or all the neighbors. And so what I found, though, is I always had this feeling, if I could just help people communicate, then I'd be doing my mission. I felt like I was called to do that. But when I was in college, what job is that? Right. So I thought I'm going to go pre-law. So I thought that would be a lawyer. And then I did a little law and I'm like, yeah, they don't help people talk. They help people fight. Then I did a little counseling. I thought counselors would do that. And then I learned about Freud and I thought that dude's messed up. So I didn't want to do that. Then I actually got a bachelor's in journalism in communications, basically, because I knew I could do that. I knew I was good at that. I went and I started teaching at a university. I went to grad school. And while I was there, I was teaching journalism classes. But I fell in love with this theory in interpersonal communication, which is about dialogue theory. It's conflict resolution. At the same time, I got a job with a company you may have heard of called Covey Company. And slowly kind of worked my way up through that company, traveled for about 7 years for them, was a consultant and would work with all these big companies, teaching them weirdly how to communicate, how to resolve conflict. Got to work on a lot of books with Stephen Covey and his son, Sean Covey. I helped write some of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens program, and worked with big companies, big Fortune 500 companies. But I always had this calling to get back to the couples. So after 7 years at Franklin Covey, I decided out of nowhere, by the way, I had the best gig ever. I was the youngest presenter there. Life was good. And I felt like I needed to leave and go start my own thing. So that was about 21 years ago. And I left, built my own company, started mediating divorces because I thought that would be fun. Like, what would be more fun than helping people that don't like each other to divorce? And what I would do is, as I was divorcing them, I'd start teaching them skills to make my life easier. I'd teach them all these communication skills I had been finding and developing. And they learned to communicate. And as they were divorcing, they were the happiest couples you've ever seen. And I thought, let's not wait till people are divorcing. So after about 2 years of mediating, I started just working with couples. From that, I wrote a book, Starve Stuff, Feeding the 7 Basic Needs of Healthy Relationships. And then I've designed a dozen workshops or so. We're trying to put all of them online now. And I've built a pretty robust coaching program. And now I'm starting to coach coaches how to coach and just share the skills, basically. And from then, I've just been speaking and writing and doing events. And I love it. And it's fun because I feel like I'm in my calling. I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I've gratefully, blessedly been able to do it with my unique strengths, which is a little more humor, a little more fun. And then I eventually, just in all of this, decided to go get another master's, got a PhD in human systems and human and organizational systems. And now I just love what I do every day. Yeah. Get to meet people like you, John, and hang out. Great, awesome guys.
Dude, I mean, I look forward to our conversations, and they're like you said, there's the humor in there, and just your way of kind of helping unpack kind of some self-awareness.
Yeah.
And really, allowing me to at kind of at my own pace, self-discovery and learn things about myself. I mean, this about me. I'm just trying to be the best version I can each and every day. And, how we came together, but how, the direction of things have been, I felt like it was supposed to be. And it's been really powerful. What for you with working with Covey, what were some of the things that still carry with you to this day with that relationship?
Yeah, that was really cool because he's very guru-esque, and he passed away a few years ago. What a wonderful man, and literally was everything he purported, everything he taught. He was doing everything in his life to live. One of the things that stood with me, and again, I got to sit in his office and at times and meet and do meetings. But one of the things he's legitimately real. So he doesn't pretend to be anything. I mean, I had heard story after story, like he would go to a movie theater with his kids and he would, his back would hurt. So he would just lie down on the ground in the theater and just stretch his back, and nobody, and he'd get up with popcorn stuck to his bald head. And you're just like, Stephen, come on, man. But I mean, I sat in a meeting with him once where one of my jobs early on was to help the authors at Franklin Covey write their books. So I was in charge of book development and managing the teams that developed the books. And so I got pretty good at content development. And I was in a meeting once where I thought the authors tended to be, really high level consultants that were making awesome money. And then they'd get a book deal and get $500,000 from a big book publisher. But they need to use the money to get the book out. Right. And so I'm the guy that had to run the team. So I was getting frustrated because I wasn't getting enough money to get them the team to get the books out. And we were having a big conversation about that. And I remember Stephen asking something, and one of the authors kind of started pontificating, and I just subtly rolled my eyes in that meeting. And Stephen did this thing. I call it Get Real, and it's an acronym for 4 things. He didn't call it this, but he recognized my emotion. He explored my story behind the emotion. He attended to where I was really starved, and then he lifted the conversation. So he recognized my emotion by saying, Matt, you seem to have something on your mind. Help us understand what you're thinking. And so he got me to speak in a conversation that I wouldn't have spoken in. I mean, I wouldn't have piped up.
Yeah.
But by recognizing my emotion, he then got me to explore the story and share the story publicly. And as I started to share it, he attended to where I was feeling unappreciated or disrespected or discouraged. and he just pointed it out. He didn't judge it. He didn't question it. He just showed me that he could understand it. And then he lifted the conversation. He went from where I was, and he showed where he agreed, and he appreciated, and he apologized if he was part of the problem. And then he shared his side. In fact, in my TED Talk, if you just Google Matt Townsend and TEDx, I do a 20-minute video or so on this get real process.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the best things I ever learned is I actually learned the very technical skills. I learned them in my master's programs, but the real caring, loving, get real conversations I learned by sitting with Stephen Covey and watching him do it.
That's amazing.
It's pretty neat.
That's so neat. And attend to it, lift it. And the biggest thing is not judge it.
Yeah. If you judge it, so you kind of have to care before you judge it, right? And even if you have to judge it, there's a really cool trick that you can always, as I believe most of the time in any discussion or argument or debate, 80% of what you're talking about, you really agree, you agree on. And if you slow down a conversation enough, you'll be able to find the agreement. The agreement's there. I mean, even on the biggest divisive issues, pro-life, pro-choice, if you start to dissect that issue, most of us agree that you should have choice, all right? And most of us agree you should favor life, right? Like if you get into it deeply, it's just a few parts of it, maybe 20% where we don't agree. And that's where we spend 100% of our time fighting. And so I use the word "and" a lot. So yeah, I may not, I appreciate what you're saying. I acknowledge what you're saying. I apologize if I was part of that. And then you use the "and" to segue into any, opposite or conflicted part of what you need to talk about. And means we keep the whole mind open. And usually we throw a word out there like "but," and then "but" shuts down the conversation. So if you use "and," then I can love my children with all of my heart, and they can suck the life out of me. Those two things can go together. And I don't want to get rid of them. And I've thought about it. And when they're gone, I miss them. And then when they're with me, I kind of need them to leave. So if you use "and," you can do that forever and ever. And it allows our minds to kind of float in paradox a little bit instead of getting really rigid in a binary either or argument.
In that situation there where, Covey did what you kind of later, put as get real.
Yeah.
And I know you've worked with some of, going in and teaching communication. Like, where do most people struggle with their communication? Where do they struggle in being able to not even understand this? Is that really what it is? They don't know or they don't care?
I think it's that. I think it's people are smart, right? And what we all are, we are also very habitualized. So a lot of what we do is just pure habit. So most of us, when we're actually talking, we're not listening. We're just reacting with our typical script. And so one of the hardest things I think people have the struggle with is that they actually, they don't know how to sit in the space and suspend. They feel like there's a compelling need to have to take your idea and sink it. So in dialogue theory, which is, if you've read any books like Difficult Conversations, Crucial Conversations, these are all books that come from one theory called dialogue theory. And dialogue theory came from a physicist, by the way, that replaced Albert Einstein in his chair in academia. And this David Bohm basically just teaches that dialogue is like a pool. And what we want to do is just let all these leaves of information float in and just let the leaves or your content just land in the pool. And when you let it land in the pool, the leaves are either going to float because they're coherent or they're going to sink because they're not. The ideas in our conversations in and of themselves have their own life and their own ability to live. But what we do as communicators is we feel a need that the minute an idea lands in the pool, if we don't like it, we try to drown it and sink it. And the minute you're actively, that's actually, just so you know what that's called, that would be a debate. The debate is where I'm going to try to use my ideas to beat up your ideas. But a dialogue is where I'm going to allow a free flow of information and logic. But in order to do that, you have to suspend.